Magnolia Plantation and Gardens is more than history and bucolic scenery. It's a gathering place for engagement and enlightenment. We want to welcome Ivy Gibbs, Director of Interpretation and Preservation at Magnolia, and Damon Fordham, who will be a guest speaker at the plantation. Thank you both for being here. And Damon, I want to hear all about what your speaking series is going to entail. You're also a native South Carolinian, and you're an adjunct history professor at the Citadel. So first, if you could, though, Ivy, set the stage for why you're holding these speaker series at Magnolia.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Of course.
We are excited to offer opportunities for the public to have opportunities to hear more about what's happening in the Lowcountry, and also to learn things that they might not have learned in school or might want some more information about. And it's not just history topics. So we're starting off here in February with history with Damon, and then in April, or I believe it's April or May, we're looking at a horticulture speaker series. So we're really trying to focus in on all of our pillars, so history, horticulture, and nature, to give people an opportunity to hear things that they might not hear on a daily basis.
And this is very much your wheelhouse, history. This is your passion, Damon. So tell us a little bit more about what you're going to be presenting during your engagement.
Well, essentially what I'm going to do is speak on many of the lesser known stories of Charleston history, which I also do through a walking tour and my books and that sort of thing, as well as in my classes. And what I do is I do it in a very storytelling type style to make it interesting and attractive to the layperson as well as the historian, because I believe it's important for those of us who know this history to put it in a way that is digestible to the general public.
And as a native South Carolinian as well, I mean, you've lived and breathed South Carolina history your whole entire life. So what are some of the stories that you enjoy telling people that are little known to most?
Well, among other things, I'm going to deal with the real story of the people behind the great American musical Porgy and Bess.
Oh, yes.
A lot of people don't know that that was based on the adventures of Samuel Smalls and Maggie Barnes, who lived in Charleston in 1924. I'm going to tell that story. I'm also going to tell the role of Charleston during the Reconstruction era and the fact that the very first black law firm in America was here in Charleston during that period.
Yeah. Well, I've got a few more questions for you, Damon, but before we get to those, you know, Magnolia is such a beautiful place to just commune with nature and to be one with the surrounding areas. Why do you think it has such an indelible impact on people when they come to visit?
I think that there's something that everyone can connect with at Magnolia. I think you can walk onto the property and see the beautiful landscapes and the towering oak trees, and you can see the beautiful flowers that are blooming any time of the year. And you can also recognize that while we're enjoying all of these beautiful sights, that it was not easily created there. And you can see when you come onto the property how much the landscape has changed over time, but also how much it's still the same. You know, our rice fields are still there. They're just now wildlife refuges. So being able to offer these spaces in multiple ways so that anyone on any part of their journey to learning about the history here in the Lowcountry can come and enjoy that, along with some beautiful wildlife spotting, whether that's an alligator or a turtle or some birds taking off, or it's coming to walk through the gardens.
Indeed. And I want to get this right, Damon, but you have a motto: the more you learn there is to learn. I love that. I love that. Where did your perpetual passion for wanting to know more and to learn comes from?
Well, I had parents who were of that last generation who loved to sit on porches and tell stories about the things that they experienced. And I grew up with a love of that. And also, since I was very unathletic and awkward as a child, I read a lot. And it was always interesting to me to read about some of the very things that they experienced and what they spoke on. And then when I was at the University of South Carolina, a man named Dean Willie Harford of the history department, he sort of took me under his wing and showed me that I could make a living out of the history that I enjoyed reading. So therefore, over the years, I've developed this style in which I do a lot of historical storytelling, which is a very animated way of doing things that's accessible to both children and adults, getting them to things that they may not necessarily learn about through social media or through the library, or they wouldn't usually go to the libraries to get these sort of things. So I go into the libraries to get the stories that most people don't already know.
And this self-enrichment and this desire to enrich has taken you all over the world.
Well, yes, I've been 4 trips to Africa.
Wow.
And in Africa, they have this tradition called the griots, which are the oral historians and storytellers. They passed work history, word of mouth, for centuries. So I met with a number of them, and I got some very interesting information from them, and I really felt a sort of bonding and kinship with them
Yeah.
through that whole process. And so I basically said that a lot of what I learned over there, I would take here to America. And you're going to see a little bit about that in my presentation.
And if I could just end on this, when you mention oral history, telling stories, recounting stories, holding on to information and stories from previous generations is so very important, but it is falling by the wayside a little bit. So what advice would you give to people watching this on how to keep the past alive?
Very simple. If they have elders in their life, to sit down with them and write down as much as possible as what they recall. Or if you had the opportunity to have experienced things yourself, or remember things that they told you, by all means, write them down.
It's precious, it's fleeting, and priceless. I want to thank you both so very much. And for anybody who is interested in going to Magnolia, make sure you get over there. It's Wednesday, February 11th from 6 to 7 p.m. It's going to be at the Carriage House at the Plantation. I want to thank you both again for joining us.
Thank you for having
Pleasure.
You're welcome.
We'll be back after this.